And let me be the first one to thank you for everything you've done for Israel and for the Jewish people. And I hope you find Las Vegas not only hot in weather, but warm in welcoming you. I wanted to ask you, and I've been really anxious to ask you this question. What was it like to grow up in Ramallah, surrounded by something that most of us only see in the news and read in the newspapers? You were part of that. You were part of the very core of an enemy that wants to annihilate us. What was that like to grow up there?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the warm welcoming. I appreciate it. You know, the desert is my natural place. How was it like to grow up in Ramallah? You know, I try as much as I can not to speak bad about the people of Ramallah or the people of Gaza, because people think that I hate what's so-called Palestinians, not realizing that my mother is there. You know, how can I hate my mother, even though she does not speak to me? Even my father, who took the cover and said, you can kill him, some 14 years ago. I cannot hate him for what he did. It's just a matter of principle. As someone who grew up in that culture, and I transcend so many barriers to come to this place. This is not just switching sides or switching agendas. This is my personal evolution, the choices that I made my entire life that brought me to this place. But people, I think, who are in denial try to reduce my journey and accuse me with all type of things so they can stay in their comfort, not face reality or face truth. The reality in Ramallah and in Gaza is of the 7th century, not the 21st century. It's all based on tribalism. It's based on shame and honor, not right and wrong. It's all about the status. It's all about deception, canceling the rights of women, which immediately canceling 50% of the society. What is a society without women? So then there is a sexual repression. The sexual repression is leading to all type of crimes. Rape is the least to say of that. Child abuse is the least to say of that. But most importantly, violence. It's a very violent culture. It's a death culture. And I personally experienced so much trauma as a child and witnessed child abuse, not only in indoctrination by the Muslim Brotherhood and by the Palestinian ideology, but also many children suffer from rape, from sexual abuse, from beating, and domestic violence. So if this is acceptable by that culture, by that society, and they don't work anything towards helping the people, integrating, so what are we expecting from such a society? When we saw them storming on October 7th, that was not coincidental. Also, we saw the people celebrating the death, the corpses, the rape, and they still celebrate and enjoy inflicting pain on the other. So we are talking about a human disease, a human condition, and a very severe one.
You know, you mentioned something, what is society without women, right? When you see what's happening in the United States, in the college campuses, and you see the students protesting, you know, and the LGBTQ community rising up against Israel and siding with Hamas, what goes through your mind when you see this? What do you say to these people?
Look, this is the nature of chaos. They want intifada. Intifada literally means chaos. In fact, Palestine means chaos and disorder. So, in a state of chaos, you have so many extremes, opposing extremes. And this is a mind-blowing phenomenon, actually. I have studied myself. I have observed the fluctuations of my consciousness for the past 10 years on a regular basis, every moment of my life. And I was puzzled by the phenomena of the pro-Palestine in the past 7 months in a way that is shocking. Because it brought so many extremes in it. You will find the communists and the Islamists protesting for the same purpose. Then you find the feminists and the Hamas rapists on the same page. It's insanity.
Yes, it is.
And after that, they carry a slogan, say anti-genocide slogan, while they're chanting genocidal chanting. They are so conflicted. They're so confused. They don't know the master that they are serving. And that literally represents the reality of Palestine, because there is no such thing. And I've been saying this, and people think I'm exaggerating or like an assault on Palestine. And I say, no, it is not an existing thing. It's an umbrella for all those who love chaos, who want to see destruction. This is what it is.
Wow. So I've seen you on many TV shows, right, with many hosts, both in America and in Europe, and you've been very, very successful in, putting their allegations down and, debating people on screen. What in your character, Mosab, has actually made you able to confront all of these people? And after you basically were a private citizen before October 7th. You had almost retired. But now you're back. So, and you're debating all these people all the time. What keeps you going on?
Look, when I started a long time ago, before I went public, I had about 10 years of daily effort trying to stop Hamas madness. Not only Hamas, also Yasser Arafat, the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, and their affiliation with suicide bombing attacks. So 10 years of witnessing bloodshed, and every time we failed to bring a suicide bomber or capture them before they reach their target. When the terrorist attacks happened, the Israeli intelligence would bring me the photos freshly from the suicide bombing scene. I would be the first to see that in order to identify the suicide bomber, to know who sent them. So there was no suicide bombing scene that I did not see the atrocities firsthand, and it was sickening. And day and night trying to capture those masterminds, the bomb makers, and those who are sending them. I came to realize that we were fighting against the ghost. So I decided to move on, because also my life was in a very dangerous situation. And when I came to the United States, I decided to write a book about it, which was, I don't want to say committing suicide, but bringing a death sentence over my head. Knowing that I would lose my family, I would be labeled as a traitor, people will misunderstand me, I bring shame on my family, and I might get killed in the process. And I didn't know that you would actually make money out of writing books. It was truly, I started writing the book on a curb, on a street curb, as a homeless person. So we wrote the book, and the book became successful, but also I had a great failure, because I lost my entire family, and it was so painful for everybody. But progressives, or what's so-called liberals in the United States, canceled me, because I touched on the ideological dimension to the conflict, which is the Islamic belief system. And left-wing liberals, the Obama administration, and many other Democrats, they did not like my approach, that I was straightforward, that the ideological dimension, if we keep ignoring it, the problem will continue forever. So my reward was to lose my family and to get canceled also. And I was okay with that. So when I had a dead end in America, I moved on and I went far away. And I lived on a small island for a very long period of time. And I start over. I started doing something completely different and I became successful in it. And I really love what I was doing there. But then October 7 happened and it brought me in the worst possible way. Why? Because I have warned everybody that Hamas is not good news. And I said it's not only Hamas, it's the Muslim Brotherhood. And I said also it's the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority is not less dangerous than Hamas. They are the ones who created all this chaos, by the way. So when people did not listen, and I had to come back on October 7, I am fed up trying to do what's so-called hasbara. Time over for explaining myself, for explaining Israel's position, because Israel is fighting for its very existence, and me too. Many people, hundreds of millions of people want me to cease to exist for no reason. I haven't killed any of their tribesmen. Why do you want me to cease to exist? So when they push us to the corner, to this degree, then we will have to fight. And this is why I identify with the Israeli struggle, because with the Jewish struggle, we are in the same boat, dealing with the same savages. So now, is this the time to sit down and rationalize with those who want to drag me into a rabbit hole, trying to explain every aspect of the conflict, and they are sitting in their comfort, and people are dying. Children are dying. Hamas is killing Jewish children in the morning for revenge. Then they are using their own children as human shields in the evening for propaganda. This is the reality of the situation. So I need to sit here with some Joe Schmo and go into their rabbit hole, try to, get to the surface. Talk to me. Who qualify you even to talk about this thing? Why are you angry? Why are you being emotional and protesting and building encampment at UCLA and Columbia universities? So these people don't qualify, and I think they have no clue what Palestine is. But they, I think, pro-chaos. They want to delegitimize Israel. They want to delegitimize a small minority, a religious minority that is very successful. And I think this is the core of their objection.
I think that one thing that's on our mind, Mosab, when we hear you speak, because you really speak with our voice too. Trust me, many of us sitting here could say exactly what you're saying, except we haven't lived it like you've lived it. What was the exact moment that made you change? What was that moment? What was the thing that got you to say, I have to switch sides. I can't do this anymore?
Look, if I tell you that there was an exact moment where I saw the light, I lied to you. And many people use this tactic to show the world that they became just better people. I don't think so. As I told you, this is an evolution. The chain of events that brought me here is a very long. It's full of adventure. It's full of taking risk. In order to know the truth, we must take risk, get out of our comfort, be able to see the other as ourselves, identify on a human level, integrate consciously. But if I look at the most important, let's say, moments where I raised the question, my experience in prison was an important one. When Hamas tortured Palestinians in Israeli prisons, as a result, hundreds of prisoners were killed and tortured, as I witnessed, for about 16 months back in 1996. And I asked myself the question, even though Hamas brought me the comfort, the security, the status, the prestige, the power, I saw that it was danger against humanity, against our society. And I asked myself, what if Hamas succeed in destroying Israel and building their state? Is this what they're going to do to our people? Well, this is a mini Hamas government in prison. They had ministers, they had emir, they had everything. And this is
inside the Israeli jail.
In jail. So this was the question, and this was the beginning of my rebellion against my father's organization. He knew that. It's not that it was a secret. But it looked like he couldn't do anything about it. It's a monster that he created in theory. Then the monster kept growing on him to a degree where he lost control of it. And that's the difference between imagination and manifestation. Back in 1987, they were chanting in Ramallah, from the river to the sea. And they started the intifada. They invited so many demons into this intifada, opposing extremes, the communists and the Islamists and the nationalists, all type of people, and the rapist and the pedophile. They invited everybody with no moral compass, with no agendas, except revolution for the sake of revolution, for destruction. And what happened 36 years later? It was crowned with a genocide. So, in theory, it may sound romantic, from the river to the sea. But then, nobody's in charge, and it goes out of control. And this is why I'm telling America and Americans, be careful. And this is part of my firm stand, that I'm not willing to compromise. It's not the time right now to play a mind game, not with me, because I have witnessed what intifada really means. And they targeted, back in Ramallah and the Palestinian territories, they targeted educational institutions at the beginning. Then they targeted economy, transportation. And this is how things went out of control. Prior to the first intifada, I was able to go with my father to the beach, to Tel Aviv, to the zoo, to Yafo. We did not have even one checkpoint. And when we got lost in Tel Aviv, the local residents of Tel Aviv helped us navigate our way. We drove our own car, and everything was peaceful. When the first intifada came, this is when things start changing, especially when we had mass stabbing and mass shooting, then the suicide bombing, then the Oslo brought Yasser Arafat, and legitimized, terrorism became legitimized. So, what are we witnessing here in the United States? They're targeting educational institutions. They're closing bridges. Tomorrow they will target the economy. And they will have any reason for them to they just want to create chaos. So this is where we cannot compromise, and we have to stand firm. Otherwise, they are going to ruin civilization. This is what Palestine stands for. So for me, it's, as you see, the traumas of the past and the eyewitness within. It's not only a personal experience as much as what this force is capable of doing. If we let them do whatever they want to do, they will corrupt Earth.
You know, you mentioned the genocide word, and I want to push you a little bit on that. You had an interview with Dr. Phil a little bit after October 7th, when you said that Hamas really wanted to do ethnic cleansing, right? And that's part of what they were doing on October 7th, and that's sort of a way in which they worship Allah. What do you mean by that? Because a lot of American Jews still do not believe that Islam is by nature a violent religion.
It's not even a religion. Why would I consider it a religion? Then it's the only religion that there is a desperate need. There is a desperate need to say Islam, the religion of peace. The only religion. The Quran is filled with Jewish hatred. And of course, I understand why the Jewish people avoid to open a large-scale confrontation with a religious minority worldwide, close to 2 billion people. It's a destructive force. And this is why even America is compromising, the American government is compromising, all the major forces, superpowers. And the thing is, with the Islam, how long we're going to go ignoring this reality, the Islamic hatred? Then I say simply, if Allah hates the Jewish people in the Quran, and that's the main Islamic source, the source of legislation, it's supposed to be the divine words. So why am I expecting from the followers of that faith, of that religion, to love the Jewish people? So I'm not saying to go on a war with the Muslims. I personally am at war with them because I'm one of them. And I have the right to criticize and to say whatever I want to say. And I don't need the permission. I don't wait for anybody to give me validation to what I say. But for you guys, you don't have to do the same. But at least you need to admit that what happened on October 7 is inspired by some religious scripture. Okay. In the Bible, there could be some violence. There could be the death penalty, but it's the death penalty. It's not asking for a genocide specifically against a religion. You will not find in the Bible that say, kill the Muslims. But Muhammad demonstrated that when he annihilated the Jewish communities of the Arab Peninsula because they did not recognize him as a legitimate prophet. So now, whether if this narrative is true or not, or the historic account is accurate or not, this is what Muslims believe. It's based on two main narratives, Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham. And the two narratives describe in detail what Muhammad did to the Jewish communities of the Arab Peninsula. I personally think that they are not true, but Muslims take them literally. And Muhammad's action, Muhammad's sayings, Muhammad's deeds are considered legislation in Islam. Second in importance or significance to the Quran. So if we are dealing with this, it means legislation. Hamas is not acting from void. And they have actually an accurate interpretation of their religion, of what they are doing. So for the Jewish people, we need to bring this awareness to the rest of other religions that include Hinduism, and this is what I've been doing with my friends close to Modi. And you may have noticed that he was speaking clearly against Islam because Hindus suffered a lot because of the Muslims and the Muslim violence. Not only the Jewish people, but Hindus, and India is about a little bit over 1 billion people. And I think this is where we need to join efforts, not to persecute Muslims or attack the Muslims, as much as we need to tell the Muslims as a majority that we don't accept your violent approach. Reform your religion or drop it completely. If you want to stay Muslims, no problem. But keep it in the 7th century. Don't bring it to the 21st century. There is no place for abusing religious minorities. So if Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism get united, not to attack the Muslims, but to stand firmly and say the violence in the Quran, the Muslims need to figure it out. And any form of it, anywhere, not only in Israel, in Indonesia, in the United States, in Europe, wherever it is totally rejected. If we have this firm, then we can push the Islamic regimes to do some change.
So that brings me to an important question, which is Israel's under a lot of pressure, right? What happens after the war in Gaza is over? What happens the day after? And everybody's telling Israel, look, you can't eradicate Hamas, you cannot eradicate their ideology, you cannot wipe them off the face of the earth. They're going to be there there's nothing you can do, right? So you kind of like have to accept that reality, and you have to have a ceasefire. What happens the day after, Mosab? Because Israel's going to finish this war. They have to. It's an existential problem. And what happens the day after? If the Palestinian Authority cannot govern, and of course Hamas cannot govern, what's the future of the Palestinians?
Maybe we don't want Palestinians in the future.
Well,
and again, listen, when I say this, by the way, when I say this doesn't mean I'm not calling for ethnic cleansing, because Palestinians, there is no such thing as Palestine. It's not a race.
I understand.
Okay, that's number one. It's an ideology. It's an ideology. So, for example, Egypt, in the past century, they dealt with the Muslim Brotherhood by the lethal force. And they were able to eradicate the Muslim Brotherhood. And every time they rise, they just crushed them. Because when you have very dangerous ideology like that is out there to hunt and kill and loot and kidnap people and kidnap infants, blackmail the whole globe, then this is a big problem. We cannot tolerate this type of ideology. And this is, by the way, Palestine. Yasser Arafat was a Muslim Brotherhood affiliate. Hamas is a Muslim Brotherhood. Al-Qaeda was inspired by the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is still a legal organization in the United States. Even though in Egypt, the birthplace of the Muslim Brotherhood been outlawed, the United States of America or the US Congress failed 3 attempts to outlaw the Muslim Brotherhood. In fact, they allow them into Congress, on Capitol Hill, in the US government. They consult with them, they hire them as advisors to just mislead the American naive politicians, and they've been working. So now, you ask me about back to Gaza, if it's possible. It is possible, and this is what we are doing right now, and we had no other choice but the lethal force, and the lethal force works. Now, we wouldn't be able to eradicate evil completely, but we can bring it to from a wild tree to a seed. But the seed will always be there. And if we don't keep watching, then it's going to grow again, and it's going to be brutal. Some 100 years ago, it was the rise of the Nazis. It became appealing to the masses, and with no time, like a wildfire, Nazism took over in 5 years. And this is why I'm outrageous, because what's happening right now, what's so-called Palestine, is the new Nazis. It's a very serious problem, and it's not only in Gaza, it's global. So the world must be united. Civilized people, any human with consciousness must get on board in this fight. Because it's not only in Gaza. Have we forgot about Lebanon, where the situation is boiling up north? Iran, we still have another big problem, the Islamic problem. So, not to forget Europe. So we could be at the verge of a global chaos. And I think the world is inviting violence. Many people want the violence. They want revolution. They want chaos. They want global intifada. And this is why I've been saying from day one, don't globalize it. Localize it. Keep it in Gaza. What happened in October 7 cannot be just forgotten. And I'm speaking from a security point of view. As someone who was operating on the ground on a regular basis for 10 years, I knew that Israel has no choice. People yesterday say, 200 civilians got killed, and of course it's Hamas statistics, for the rescuing the 4 hostages. And they were upset, they were so sad. Naturally, any human being with consciousness would celebrate yesterday. But the pro-Palestine were saddened yesterday for the rescue of the hostages. And we tell them what's the alternative. Then they come say, diplomacy. What diplomacy? They want to release mass murderers like Sinwar. They want thousands of Sinwar model on the streets, back on the streets. In what law? So, all those who are calling for diplomacy, ceasefire now, they want Hamas to stay in power, using Hamas propaganda, they want Israel to surrender. And this was Hamas' tactic from day one. They committed genocide on October 7. Then they wanted Israel to surrender on October 8th by taking the hostages. This is their tactic. And this is why, and this was my message to the hostage families when I sat down with them. Lift the pressure of the Israeli government. They don't have the hostages, they don't have your children. And redirect the pressure on Hamas and all the foreign entities that given legitimacy to Palestine for free, with nothing in return. Spain, Norway, they could have said, we might recognize a Palestinian state, but give us the hostages back. Make one condition. So it's not Gaza only. It's not Gaza only. We are dealing with a phenomena. And the Palestinian syndrome, this needs to be studied, need to be addressed, not only on a political and other levels, most importantly, psychological level. Why all these people identify with Palestine? Why it's not a race? It's not an ethnic group. It's not a distinct language. It's a colonial entity. Whether the Romans empowered it or the British empowered it, whatever it is, just it's a hostile state. So we need to educate the people on the origins of this. And I'm afraid that it is not going to end in Gaza. It is going to drag and violence is going to spread. It could reach the United States. All what's happening, by the way, I'm not here to trade in fear or to scare you guys, but this crowd that protesting for Palestine today, tomorrow they will have an angry cause. They will always find an angry cause. And among us, people who are pro-violence, pro-disorder. So expect more of this. What's happening today is only indication. And this is why I invite many Americans to actually stand with Israel today. Because if we don't leash those unconscious people on the streets, then tomorrow they will come back 10 times stronger.
This is a difficult question, Mosab. When the last time I was in Israel, and I was in the Magen David Adom headquarters, we had a presentation of some of the stuff that was found on the backpacks of the Hamas terrorists who infiltrated Israel. And, they had the maps, they had the instructions, they had condoms. So they were prepared for sexual violence. This is not something that randomly happened. And I want to know, you that lived in their world, I understand, no, I can't understand. They get into Israel, they murder us. Why did they have to rape women? Why did they have to act with that sexual violence? Where does that come from in the ideology of Islam?
In Islam, it's actually justified to take women as booty. So in a war, and that's 7th century mentality, this is what supposedly Muhammad practiced, even though I doubt it, but according to most Islamic trusted resources, he demonstrated that by taking, for example, Safiya, which was the wife of the Jewish leader of Khaybar. And he slept with her the same day he killed her husband. This is according to one of the most trusted Islamic resources. Okay, so to Muhammad that was a booty. The Muslims say he honored her by taking her as a wife. So they will always justify the sexual violence. But throughout the Islamic history, what they did in Europe, what they did to Persia, what they did in India, they are invaders. And by the way, there is no difference between Palestine and Islam or the Palestinian state and Islamic state, because they depend, both concepts depend on the destruction of all other civilizations. Palestine depends on the destruction of Israel as a condition for existence. And the Islamic State depends on the destruction of other civilizations in order to create the Islamic civilization. They cannot create of their own. They can invade, then they take all the intellectual property, women, enslave humanity, and behead men. This is what they did, according to their own history. So, we cannot ignore this reality. Now, rape was not only committed by Hamas. Rape was committed mostly by Gaza civilians. By the civilians. Those are the ones, by the way, back in the day when Israel, during the Oslo period, Israel allowed the Palestinian Authority to bring Gazans into the West Bank. And within weeks of the arrival of the Gaza people to Ramallah, it's my hometown where I was born, in the West Bank, near Jerusalem, the stories of rape were all over the place. And this is when the people of Ramallah said, we don't want Gazans coming to our city at all, because it's a Christian town, by the way. So it's a rape culture, especially rape against minors, male. Then the punishment to the rapist and the rape victim are the same. Kill them both to bury the shame. This is why you will find a father who kills his own daughter, or a brother who would kill his sister because of shame. Or she's a rape victim. It's better for them to just kill the woman to hide the shame. We are talking about, and we wonder, where is the sexual violence coming? Then they want women to be one thing. They want them all to dress in black and burqas, repress them, kill their potential. Then when the society is black and white, that does not have diversity in it, all the creative force, all the divine intelligence is absent from that society, they complain. Then when they look at their neighboring country and they see the diversity, even though it could be wild when you go to Tel Aviv, but at least people have the freedom. And that's the way of evolution. That's the way of the universal design. This is the way of God. And everybody is responsible for the choices that they make. You cannot just repress half of the society, then target minors and abuse children sexually, and also by indoctrinating, then expect that there is not going to be sexual violence coming out of that society. Does not even qualify as a society. Then come and say Palestine, Palestine as an escape. Well, how can Palestine actually solve your problem? Your very foundation is rotten. And the world is really believing them. If we give them power, this type of people cannot be trusted with their own children. They are willing to sacrifice their children religiously. How can I trust them with territory? How can I trust them with a government? How can I trust them with any power? These people are not trustworthy. They haven't proved, at least to me, that they love their children more than they hate their enemy.
I wanted to just lastly ask you if there's any sign of optimism in the world. If there's anything that you can see after everything we've been going through that will turn out for the better, that maybe at the end of this something will happen that will magically change things.
Look, what happened, the genocide committed on October 7, even though the Jewish people don't like to admit it, was a genocide. Because the very definition of genocide was manifested on October 7, and cannot be compared to the collateral damage that is happening in Gaza as a result of the use of human shields, even though Hamas statistics are untrustworthy. The situation is dire, it's not an easy one, and people are living in a virtual reality. It's for the first time they are face to face with death, the consequences of genocide. Instead of admitting that what happened on October 7 was a genocide and humanity stood united in the face of this situation, instead of saying free the hostages, they have been saying worldwide in the millions, free Palestine. They choose a political ideology, a destructive ideology, over the interest of humanity, even though they are just 130 hostages. But this is humanity. And so many failed to discern where do they stand, right from wrong, in this state of confusion. So I am optimistic, but first, justice must be delivered 100% with no compromise. That's number one, and no matter how it takes. And if they want to take it beyond Gaza, then we are going to go beyond Gaza. If they want to go to Lebanon, we're going to Lebanon. If they want to go to Iran, we're going to Iran. If they want to go even to Europe, we're going to Europe. Even here in the United States, nobody is above the universal justice. This is not up to the US president or the US Congress. So first, justice delivered. Then after that, we can talk about the day after. But as of now, I don't know the bill. Maybe the bill is going to be much higher than what we are thinking. We could have finished the war months ago if it wasn't for all these hypocrites. Because they are complicit in the crime. They are complicit in the crime, and the blood is on their hands. So with that said, let's not be eager for a quick and fast resolution. It has been like this for so long. We have no choice now but to fight. And we will fight the good fight. I personally am willing to lose this form, my physical body, and never submit to a savage empire. Even if I have to fight until the last breath, it doesn't matter.
Mosab, I want to thank you. I know it's not easy every time you have to use all this energy to explain to people where you're coming from when it shouldn't need an explanation. And I really appreciate you spending this time with us and coming to Las Vegas and being our guest here. Thank you so much for everything you did.
You're welcome. Thank you.